I just came from seeing the movie Gravity, which I heard so much about. People were raving about the technical wizardry of the movie, and that is absolutely right. It's the most visually stunning movie I've seen since Avatar. It calls to mind a lot of these great space movies. I think especially 2001. The opening scene, especially, I mean, just stays vividly in my mind. You just see this huge, expansive view of planet Earth from outer space, and you see gradually coming toward you this space station with people, astronauts, floating around it. And so there's the opening scene, and it's all of the glory of technology, what human technology has accomplished to put people up into outer space, and to watch these technicians working on this. I think it's supposed to be the Hubble telescope. Extraordinary, lyrical display of the power of technology. Well, then we see the two main characters, played by George Clooney and by Sandra Bullock. And the Clooney character is a veteran astronaut on his last mission. He is utterly confident, even a little bit cocky, as he's making his way around the station with his backpack on and looking very comfortable. And then you have the Sandra Bullock character, who's a scientist, a bit inexperienced in space, and she's quite nervous and so on. Well, then the drama begins with the destruction of a Russian satellite, which has set up a field of debris that's moving around planet Earth. And to make a long involved story short, it's caused a chain reaction, and now their orbit is threatened by all this debris. So it comes, and it's a horrific scene because you can't hear anything in outer space, but you just see the effects of this debris as it really ruins the space station where they are. And it sends Sandra Bullock's character literally spinning out into space. There's no resistance, and so she just spins over and over, and she is in utter anxiety. George Clooney character, maintaining his sang-froid and his poise, locates her eventually, and then he comes and he gets her, and with the remaining fuel in his backpack, he brings her back to the station, and in the process, he kind of calms her down and brings her to herself. They discover that their original station, the ship, has just been catastrophically compromised. Everyone's been killed. They have to make their way then to a Russian Soyuz station that's still floating out there in space. And while Clooney is literally dragging her, by a sort of a tether, he discovers for the first time he's trying to calm her down so she won't take in too much oxygen, which is running out. And he's asking about herself, and he discovers that she had lost a child, a 4-year-old daughter who died in kind of a freak accident. So we learn that about Sandra Bullock's character. They come to the Russian ship, and to make a long involved story short, there's another confrontation with all this space debris, and they're in a very dire situation where she's clinging to the ship, and then she's clinging to him. And he realizes, look, you can't do this. I'm going to drag you back, and we're both going to be killed. And so Clooney's character unhooks his tether, and she's begging, no, don't. He says no, and he lets go, and he floats off into space, knowing full well that he will die in order to save her. As he floats away, the last thing we hear from him, he looks down at planet Earth and he says, how beautiful the Ganges looks in the sun, as the sun is glinting off the river Ganges, which of course is the river most sacred to Hindus, a river of enormous religious significance. So with that, he floats away, and now the Sandra Bullock character has to make her way into some kind of module there, and then we think, okay, she's going to make it home. She gets into the pod and discovers it's out of fuel. And she thinks, well, that's it. I'm gone. I'm going to die today. There's no hope. And the thing is shutting down, and her oxygen is running out. And she just resigns herself to her own death. At which point, it seems like just a deus ex machina, at which point the hatch opens up, and suddenly there's Clooney's character again. And we thought, I thought he had floated off into space. He comes in with all his bravado and his confidence, and he turns the lights back on and tells her how to get the thing going. And we think, oh, great, they're saved. And the next scene, though, she wakes up, and of course he's not there. She's alone. And you say, well, I guess it was just a hallucination caused by a lack of oxygen. Or was it something more? She has now a kind of religious awakening. And she sees the visit from the Clooney character, whether you say it's just a hallucination or was it some kind of, heavenly manifestation. She sees it as a link to a higher world. It gives her confidence to go on, gives her the information she needs, but also the confidence to go on. And more than that, it gives her the confidence that somehow she can contact her daughter. After her daughter's death, she was so devastated. All she wanted to do was drive and drive, as though driving away from the tragedy. And where is she when the movie begins? But 375 miles above the earth. She's driven as far away as she can. Now she reaches out in a kind of prayer, asking her daughter to listen to her. She expresses her love for her, how proud she is of her. The Clooney character's intervention has opened up a door of communication with the higher world. Well, she then manages to activate this vehicle, and she makes her way back to Earth, and even more adventures when the thing crashes into the water. And she finally clambers out onto the ground, and you see her putting her fingers in the sandy dirt. She's literally back to Earth. And then she whispers, "Thank you," which is the last line of the movie. Whom is she possibly thanking but God? Now, here's what's striking me. I'm just doing a quick little overview of the plot there. The movie is much richer than I'm suggesting. Take that opening scene again, this magnificent display of human technology, what human beings are able to accomplish through our ingenuity and so on. And a lot of it has to do with communication. So up there in outer space, you got all the satellites that make our GPS systems possible and our computer systems and all that, this sort of global communication. But like that, it can all be destroyed. So here comes the debris, and like that, this whole magnificent technological wonder is destroyed. Now think of the Clooney character having sacrificed his own life to save hers and floating off into space notices the Ganges. What you've got there is something very powerful. Jesus said, "Greater love hath no man than to give his life for another," for his friend. Right? Who is God? Well, God is the love that makes the whole universe. Dante said, "The love that moves the planets and the other stars." The love that Clooney's character demonstrated is indeed the great link to the transcendent, to God, who in turn links us to everything else. So as he floats away, having committed this great act of love, he sees the Ganges, the link to the heavenly. But then her great mystical experience, where Clooney's character, which is the vehicle, if you want, of the transcendent, because he's the one that expresses the greatest love to her, he becomes the catalyst for her awakening to purpose and so on. And also the link to her daughter. We can fall very easily into the trap of thinking that our technology will save us. Our technology is very useful. And I mean that now in the highest way. I love technology. I love the uses that we can put it to. But technology does not save us. It can be wrecked like that. The only thing that saves us is the power of God. How is it manifested? Through self-sacrificing love. That's the love that moves the planets and the other stars. That's the love that is the opening of the door to the transcendent mystery, and more to it, that is the true source of communication. It's not our satellites, as great as they are. It's not computers, as wonderful as they are. It's not the real source of communication. It's a connection to God, which is why at the end, when she comes back to Earth, having fled the world to get away from the trauma of her daughter's death, that she can say finally, "Thank you." It's wonderful too. When she's there in the pod and she's given up, she starts to pray in this halting way, but she says aloud to no one in particular, I just don't know how to pray. I was never taught. And what occurred to me was Sandra Bullock's character and Clooney's would all be roughly around like my time, sort of my generation. My generation was a lost generation that did lose a lot of their moorings to the spiritual. We ran with technology. Technology becomes a source of entertainment and joy and transcendence and connection. See, but all that is just is all ephemeral. It's all a facade. She learns by the end of the movie how to pray, because that's a great prayer. Simply to grab planet Earth, having survived this ordeal, and to say quietly, thank you, is a great prayer. There's no better prayer than that. And I think that's the key to the movie, is contrast the opening scene and the closing scene. The opening scene of this magnificent display of technology. Great, but like that it can go. And the real transcendent is found when in our humility we can say thank you to the transcendent source of life and being. That's what I got from this movie, which surprised me. I was expecting all the high-tech special effects, and they were there. But I didn't expect this rather profound spiritual meditation.